Great.
All right, just got back from the cinemas where I saw the new Thor Ragnarok, aka Thor 3, and here with the review. I guess just a couple quick notes. I'm mostly caught up on the Marvel movies, although I missed Thor 2. But like I know vaguely what some of the things that happened in it because of the internet. So Loki had switched places with Odin. He's disguised as Odin or something like that. Saw Avengers: Age of Ultron recently, so I was kind of caught up on where like Thor and the Hulk were supposed to be. I guess while I'm getting into this, anyone wants to indulge me on a tangent here. When I first started seeing previews for Thor Ragnarok, I had no idea what Ragnarok was, much as I kind of hate to admit my ignorance. But I thought it was referring to like a Marvel Comics line, like a story from the original comics, which I think it kind of was also. Like I think Marvel also had a Ragnarok story at some point. But I didn't even, and like Ragnarok kind of, it sounded a little bit to me like, it sounded like a comic book name. I think like DC and the Hawk world used to have a lot of kind of strange names like that, Green Lanterns. So, you could see where it would be like a comic book type thing. But I put it into Google and got this page on Wikipedia, and from the original Norse myths, you probably knew that before I did. I was reading about it and I thought, wow, this is really bizarre. It's just, I regret that I don't know much about Norse myths. Maybe that's one of these things I'm going to have to read up on in the future. Because when I was a kid, I read a lot of kind of Greek myths, but I never read any Norse myths. And it's just really bizarre. And it's amazing to think that people, I guess, kind of sort of believed this back, like 150,000 years ago, all these stories. And obviously it has a huge impact on the English language, right? Like Wednesday comes from Odin's Day, Thursday comes from Thor's Day. So, maybe one of those things everyone should kind of know because it impacts our culture so much. Anyways, that's all kind of a way by the tangent. So went into this movie and really enjoyed it. Where to start? So I think you've got to give these Marvel movies some credit, right? Because this is kind of like Thor, a standalone Thor movie. It's not 100% standalone because it also kind of ties in story threads from the Doctor Strange movie and Incredible Hulk and the Avengers and stuff like that. But kind of a standalone movie, and so there's a temptation to think, well, okay, this is just one of those movies to kind of tide you over until the next like big event, just to kind of remind you that these heroes exist. But boy, they really put everything into this movie. Like this was not a half-assed job or something like that. This was a full Hollywood spectacle, all the special effects and stuff like that. Some really spectacular action scenes, a lot of great humor in it. Special effects were remarkable. That Immigrant song from Led Zeppelin that was playing in the trailers, which by the way is one of my favorite songs, have been ever since university, or high school really, is featured prominently in the movie kind of twice. Once at the beginning and then kind of once again near the end. And I love that song, so I thought, oh, cool. When you think about it, going off on a bit of a different tangent now, another tangent, it's strange that some of this Led Zeppelin music doesn't get used in movies more. And I'm not sure what the reason is, but it must have to do something with the copyrights, right? Because like the music is just so awesome. So there must have been some sort of legal reason kind of up until now why they couldn't be using that music. And then whatever that reason was, they must have negotiated it away for this Thor Ragnarok. So I'm watching it, and I'm watching the action sequence, and I'm loving the music, and I think, oh, this is so awesome. You know, we hardly ever hear this song in movies. But then I thought, well, wait a minute. Does this cheapen the song now? You know, because now it's just like, instead of like this awesome rock song, it's just like the soundtrack to an action scene. And then like I felt a little bit like, yeah, actually, that maybe now that song is not so cool anymore. But then I kind of came back around a little bit, because like I'm not 18 anymore. I'm older. I'm more cynical, and I thought, like Led Zeppelin, they were never like a utopian socialist experiment. Like any of these big music bands were capitalists. Like they weren't doing this for free. So, all those records that they sold and all those tours they went on and stuff like that. I mean, I know like these guys have kind of a cool hippie image, but they're totally capitalist. So, what's the difference? Put it in the movie. They sold out a long time ago. Anyways, it's a cool song. It's got kind of a Norse mythology kind of vibe to it, kind of right in the lyrics, and it's got this mysterious kind of yelling at the beginning. Just complemented the movie perfectly. And then, the special effects were really great. The CG, I think, the thing with the CG in this movie, you can still kind of tell it's CG because it looks a little bit cartoonish, like the Hulk. He looks like a little bit cartoonish still. But in terms of how the CG interacted with the physical actors, that was flawless. Like you could forget that the Hulk wasn't really physical space and that he was just kind of computer generated. That the interaction was just flawless there. Technology has improved so much since that Ang Lee Incredible Hulk movie that came out, like in 2004 or whenever it was. Yeah. So the action scenes were great. There was a lot of great humor in this. Chris Hemsworth is really a great comedic actor. I was reading some review somewhere, I forget what it was, but it says, people know he's like handsome and a leading man and kind of muscular and stuff like that, but like people forget his comedic timing is just perfect, and he was really good in this. Hulk was funny in this movie. Yeah. So they've evolved the character somewhat. I think the last time we saw Hulk, he couldn't really speak. He was just, he would just kind of yell and scream and stuff like that. No, he could speak, couldn't he? Sorry, I'm remembering the other movies. But I think his language is more evolved now, more complex, because apparently Bruce Banner has spent the last 2 years as the Hulk for whatever reason. I guess because he's in an environment that kind of keeps like him all on tension at the time. Now I was reading somewhere that they can't actually make a standalone Hulk movie because they don't have the rights to it. There's something complicated with the rights. I mean, I know they already made one before. I don't know. They can't make a new one now. So this Thor movie was, about as close as a Hulk movie as we're gonna get, and it was a good showcase for the Hulk. Yeah. So the soundtrack was awesome. The action was awesome. The comedy was awesome. I guess there's only kind of one kind of note, and it's not really even a complaint really, because it's one of those things where you get what you pay for, but it's just kind of like 2 hours of just wall-to-wall fight scenes essentially. There's kind of brief moments where people talk, but it's just kind of fighting the whole way through. And I think like these movies didn't really kind of exist when I was a kid. Like you had like the climaxes at certain points in the movie, but you never had, when I was a kid, a movie that was just complete fighting almost the whole way through, like you have nowadays. I think I would have loved this movie when I was a kid. I don't know. I don't know what kid me would have made of it. But like as an adult, I guess, my patience for fascination with action scenes, I guess, is a little bit more diminished now than it was when I was 12 years old. So, you know, it starts off with the first fight scene, and I'm an action scene fan. I experience the vicariousness thrill of it as much as the next guy. So I was like, yeah, oh, I love this movie. And then, you know, you get to the middle of the movie and they're still fighting. You're like, oh, this is so exciting. And then you get to the end of the movie and you're like, oh, okay, I'm getting tired now. And like, you know, and then they come in for the climactic battle, and the bad guy comes up for, you know, one last big battle, and you're just like, okay, just finish now. I'm sick of the fighting. Now that's not this movie specifically. That's just kind of a lot of these movies these days. It was an issue with this movie somewhat. Is, you know, when it's just all fighting all the time, I think I suffer a little bit from kind of fighting fatigue when I get near the end of the movie. That being said, I think the director did like a good job with this, because there are beats in the movie, and there are times when like that last battle at the end when she's fighting him, and then there's like that pause where it looks like he's defeated, and she's kind of holding him by the head saying, look at this. And then he kind of goes in and you kind of see Odin, and there's that kind of dum dum music, and he has that pep talk with Odin, and then he comes back and now he's got the thunder and the lightning with him, and they play that Led Zeppelin Immigrant song again, and it just kind of just like another glorious action scene. That was a lot of fun. And then like the movie just keeps going and going, like, because even after the action scene, then like, all right, we still can't defeat her, we need to fight her even more. It was like I guess this is as good a place as any to get into it. I love action movies, despite the fact that I consider myself a pacifist in real life, which is a contradiction. But I've tried to kind of maintain a distinction between kind of fantasy and real life, and I allow myself kind of certain fantasies that I would not allow myself in real life. And, you know, like an action movie is kind of one of those, because as an adult I know that fighting is bad and doesn't solve anything, but as kind of a fantasy, you just kind of go along with it. Why do we males love violence so much? I don't know. Probably Darwin or something. I don't usually get into this. Actually, that's a lie. I probably get into this all the time. But it's a bit of a can of worms that once you open it, you go all the way down the rabbit hole. I'm mixing my metaphors. Anyways, I bring all that up just to say there was one point in the movie when this guy, he gets these two machine guns. He's like one of the bad guys, kind of, but then he's redeeming himself at the end. He gets his machine guns and he's joining the good guys. He just shoots the machine guns and he's mowing down all the bad soldiers. And I don't know, maybe it's the proximity in time to that shooting we had in Las Vegas, where somebody got into a hotel room and was machine gunning down all the people. But I thought, is this what's wrong with America? Just this fantasy that we have about getting the machine guns and just kind of mowing down all these people in front of us, which in this movie is kind of, you know, played out as kind of a harmless fantasy. But does this get into the psyche of people who, you know, like that Las Vegas shooter who thought it would be fun to get into his hotel room and just mow everyone down with a machine gun? I mean, do the movies make it a little bit too cool to be kind of mowing down people with the machine guns? It's something that gave me pause, and it's one of those things. I'm sure you could say that about a million movies, and I'm not sure why it gave me pause in this movie instead of the other movies. I think maybe just because that shooting was just kind of fresh in the news. It's an old debate, of course. Each movie kind of pushes the envelope a little bit more, maybe, or not each individual movie, but each generation of movies. But people were arguing about this all the way back in the 1950s with the media. Probably before then. So, like, who knows? But yeah, that being said though, I'll return to another point that I've made before and I'll make again. These movies are worldwide releases. Like this, everyone is seeing Thor Ragnarok. It's an international movie. If I didn't introduce myself, I'm living in Saigon right now. I saw this in the movie theater in Saigon, but it's playing in China, in Japan, in Europe, in Australia, etc. As are all the Hollywood movies. And strangely enough, by some coincidence, the only country where these gun massacres regularly occur is a country where people have access to these automatic machine guns. In countries where people don't have access to it, these massacres don't occur. So, like, you can only blame the movie so much, is what I'm saying. If we had kind of, Japan watches exactly all the same movies that we do, and they don't have the gun massacres. That's a tangent. I was getting off topic. To get back onto topic, what else did I want to say about this movie? What else did I want to say about this movie? Maybe that was about it, actually. Really like the action sequences, despite, mixed feelings about it. It's funny in parts. Ragnarok was interesting. You know what? I think that's it. Yeah, so I'm just going to finish out the review here. That's all for this time.